Hello everyone. In today's video, let's talk about how to initialize objects using constructors. So in the last video, we created our person class, and then we initialized a person object in our main class, and then we give it some value to its member variables, and then we call its greeting methods to say hello to the person. Now let's take a look at our line 6 here, and this is our object creation and initialization statement. After the initialization, we give it some initial values to its member variables. In this example, we give its first name and last name, right? And then we call greeting. So the program will print out hello John Doe. So notice that we're doing object creation and then give it values, separately. And we're doing this in 3 lines of code. So actually, we can do all of this in just 1 line of code, in 1 step. So for that, we're going to use constructors. Now, let's see how to do that. Let's jump back to our person class. So constructors are actually a special type of member methods, and it is used for object creation and initialization. So right after we define all the member variables is where we create our constructors. Okay, so before all the member methods and after all the member variables, we create our constructors, right? Constructor. So the syntax for creating constructor are like this. First is the access modifier, and in this case we're gonna say it's public, and then followed access modifier is our class name. Our class name is person, so our constructor name is also person. Now after the constructor name is our parentheses, so instead of parentheses is our parameter list. In our example, we want our objects to have a first name and last name when it's being initialized, right? So first name is a string and last name is also a string. So our parameter list should be 2 strings, right? So we say string and s1 and string s2. So you can name it whatever you want. I'm just gonna call it s1 and s2. And then we have curly braces. Now, what we want to do is when we initialize our person object, we want to give the value of s1 to first name and the value of s2 to last name, right? So in order to do that, we're going to use the this keyword. So this dot first name equals s1, and then this dot last name equals s2. So let me explain what is going on. So the this keyword actually means that the current object instance. So this dot first name equals s1 is that for the current instance, I want the first name to have the value of s1, and this dot last name is that the current instance, right? I want the current instance last name becomes s2. So that's how we do creation and variable initialization, right, all in 1 step using constructor. So now we finish our constructor, right? We can call in our main class. So you can see here in the main class we have an error because now we have our constructor constructed. We cannot just call person. We need to give some parameters inside of the parentheses. So our parameter list are 2 strings, so we're going to give it 2 strings. The first is our first name, which is John, and then it's our last name, it's Doe. So now the error goes away. We can actually delete these 2 lines. So if we run this, right, it should have the same results. It should print out hello John Doe. There we go, which means we do creation and initialization in just 1 line of code. Now, one more thing that I want to talk about is that we can have multiple constructors inside of a class. In our last example, right, we don't have a constructor defined, but we can still, initialize our person objects. That's because when we don't specifically define a constructor, the Java compiler will give us a default constructor which takes no parameter and give all the member variables a initial value of either 0 or empty. Okay, but if we specify a constructor, we can use that constructor to construct our objects, and we can have multiple constructors as long as they take different types of parameter list, right? So let's try to define another constructor. I say public and person, all right? And this time, instead of using first name and last name, I want to do phone number, right? So I say string s, right? And then I want the instance phone becomes s. All right. Now let's jump back to our main class and initialize another person object, and let's call it p2 and equals new. Let's use the phone constructor person, and we give it a single string, right? It's phone number, right? So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Right. So let's try to print that out. So system dot out dot print lane p2 dot phone. All right. Now let's run this. There we go. Right. P2's phone is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So, right, as you can see, right, you can have like multiple constructors constructed, as long as they don't take the same parameter list, right? So if I wanted to define a constructor which, would initialize phone and address, right, that will be take two strings as well, which is in conflict with our first constructor, which also takes two string. Then our compiler will confuse which constructor to use, which is prohibited in our programming. So let's take a look. So if I say public and then person, right, and then do string s1, string s2, right, it will give us an error because it will tell me that this type of constructor is already defined, so I cannot do that. So just keep in mind that you can have multiple constructors, but they must take different parameter list. So that's it, guys. That's how we create constructors and use constructors to do object initializations. In the next video, we're gonna take a closer look at methods and how to create methods, right? Different types of methods. So thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.